Hey everybody, welcome to the Johansson show. Today I am joined by somebody I think is one of the most underrated wrestlers in the British wrestling scene, Dara Diablo. Dara, thank you for coming on.
All right, no problem. Thanks for having us on.
I saw your facial, like for those listening audio, we also do video. Saw your reaction then with underrated, and to be honest, I think if you ask a lot of your peers as well, a lot of them say the exact same thing. Like to a lot of us, you are underrated for the body of work you've done.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's very kind. I think I'm quite good, Um, I don't know. I think, I don't have a lot of self-awareness of my own, body of work, I suppose, within wrestling. Like, I don't know what people think of me as such, which I suppose isn't a great thing, but I've got this opinion of myself that I'm somewhere between Dennis Stamp and the from Beyond the Mat, if you've ever seen
Yeah.
that, and the rock band Anvil. If you remember, there was the a film Anvil, which was sort of like Spinal Tap, but
All
about
right.
a band. So I'm somewhere between. I think I'm great and I'm awful, or I'm just really unlucky, and I've been held back by that. I don't know, but thank you. It's kind of you to say that I'm underrated.
I think a lot of it is just this not Yorkshire scene, I guess. I think it is quite hard for people of this kind of like northeast to be getting like used a lot more. I know all the companies in and around our area are more family friendly. They're not this internet like smart crowd or anything like that. And I think with like the roster that NGW have, there's so many people where you could, like yourself, put them on any show in the country and you'll be able to fit in. But because it's not that internet audience companies in and around, I think that's what's affecting it.
I mean, yeah, that's an issue, and I think geographically as well, especially being based in Hull. Like, if you look at a lot of the hubs of all these internet kind of
Yeah.
wrestling, Manchester and Leeds and like London and the South, they're all connected, or they're all big cities that are near each other, big you know conglomerations of like residential areas and people
Yeah.
around. This Hull's kind of out on its own. So like if a promoter's booking, say, a couple of lads from Hull, he's bringing them from Hull on their
Yeah.
own. Whereas if he's, say there's a promoter in Manchester or Liverpool and he's booking some guys from Leeds. You got guys from Leeds, yeah, it's an hour down the way. They can pick people up on the way. It's all very. Or if someone's from the Midlands, say like Nottingham, going to
Yeah.
do a show in Scotland, and we can pick someone up in Leeds because it's on
But
the way. But
you don't really.
Hull's out on its own, and as you say, a lot of the companies, like especially like NGW and stuff, are more more for a family audience kind of thing
Yeah.
as opposed to the internet crowd. And yeah, I guess it does make a difference. But them's the breaks. On the other hand, you could look at it the other way that we're in Hull and we get to do the NGW shows, which without sounding like it's be all and end all. Now they do have the Butlins camps, which
Yeah.
are a fantastic opportunity for any wrestler. Like,
Oh, 100%. Like, I sing the praises, whether it's NGW or even All Star.
yeah, yeah,
Those two companies are probably where you want to be, essentially, because just the amount of repetition you're getting because of the camps.
mm,
Like, you get some people where there might be this next internet darling that have had 5 matches because their internet company's only running once a month. But a week on the camps, you're already working more than that. And I think it is like one of the best educations just because, yes, it may be it's family friendly, but a lot of it is trying to get reactions out of people that have maybe never seen wrestling before. And that's the biggest challenge in itself.
I mean, it's definitely the case. I mean, I know you go on about it. You've gone on about it on some of your other podcasts about All Star. But if you just look at the people who've been through, like
Yeah.
the All Star or the summer camps and stuff, um, well, think of off the top of my head, Drew McIntyre
Yeah.
did the summer camps, Juice Robinson, Marty Skrull, Cash Wheeler, Jushin Thunder Liger, Gangrel. These people
Yeah.
are massive names, top stars in top companies. Nick
Yeah.
Thomas Latimer, all these people. And like, this is just off the top of my head. all these people, top of their game, some of the best in the world, and they've all done the camps. Daniel Bryan, obviously.
Look at Gangrel.
Colt
Gangrel still
Cabana.
comes over.
Yeah, it's like I don't know how anyone could look at like the camps and go, oh, well, they're not that, it's not like real wrestling. And you've got all these people who are, Drew McIntyre's the WWE champion.
Yeah.
Like, Juice Robinson was IGP like champion or whatever. And you can't dismiss that when there's so many people who have gone through. Who are the people who are, at NXT, like, Robbie Brookside and all these James Mason and stuff like that, who are the trainers now. And why are they able to train all these new wrestlers and stuff? Because they've spent years on the camps, working hundreds of shows a day and learning how to get those reactions out of people. Like people like put down on camp wrestling and say, oh yeah, it's not the same as like real wrestling, but it is the same. It's the same. It's the same toolbox. You just might not use as many paints as you would for an indie crowd. So like someone like Robbie X, who does the camps and he does like Rev Pro and things like that. He's still you see Robbie X at Butlins, and it's the same guy who's at Rev Pro. Maybe he doesn't do as many long like indie running spots and things like that, but you're still going to see him do great stuff, like unbelievable things. So I think that idea of like the camps being a bit, like baby wrestling or whatever is going away. I think people have more of a respect for it, especially with people having the success that they have following on from like working the camps. As you say, the experience of hundreds of matches in a year is just you can't compare to it with anything really.
No, definitely, and I think it's just the crowd sizes as well. It's a lot again, and I always feel like I may come across shitting on the internet. I like the internet wrestling. Like I go to Progress or Rev Pro or watch Ring of Honor, but these like companies, it drives me insane when people don't get the recognition they deserve or get praise. Like I see it a lot on social media with people saying, "Oh, well, they just work the camps, don't they?" And it's like, yeah, they work 200 plus days matches a year in front of bigger audiences than half of the British wrestling scene. And what's your experiences been like there? Because I know you was on All Star. Have you done NGW's Butlins run as well?
Yeah, I have. In fact, last year there was an NGW camp run towards the end of the year. It was all socially distanced, like shows. It was all tables booked, and we all had tests. We all isolated before we went and went as a bubble. But we did manage to get a week, 10 days on the Butlins last year. And yeah, it was a hard run. It was 3 shows a day, so it was a long one. It was hard, but yeah, I've worked a few NGW camps and that. I haven't done the whole summers because I worked like a shoot job and stuff. But like it's different. It's different to how the All Star like camps were, but it's still it's still a quality show. It's still brilliant. Like the All Star camps, you're there. And there's so much experience there when you're on the camps. Like I listened to your podcast with Eccentrico. Like he's not he's not wrong. You getting that. You could be the worst wrestler in the world, but if you spend a summer, reffing or being around all these people, like I say, when I've done it, I've been in the car with people like Frankie Sloan and Robbie Brookside and Robbie Dynamite, Dean Allmark. Like Dean Allmark's the classic case of someone who is. And James Mason, arguably some of the best wrestlers this country's produced in 30 years, who knows? But on the indies, he's not as loved as maybe he should be. And, he can work that style. He can work any style. And, yeah, he doesn't get the appreciation. And a lot of those all-star guys have. But you're on these car journeys with these people for long periods of time, and you're talking about wrestling. You learn to be better. Being around people who are, better wrestlers, it builds you up. If you wrestle someone who's, less experienced than you can have 200 matches, and you'll pick up things, but you won't pick up as much as being in the ring with someone more experienced, someone who knows, who goes, okay, and who can pick you up on things and getting that feedback. Being open to feedback is another key thing for any young wrestler. Like, you want to go there, you ask them, and I want if I come back after a match, and I'm there, and I ask my opponent, I say, was it all right? Everything okay? Like, and they go, yeah, it's fine. I'm like, okay, cool. But if they go, oh yeah, like, actually, you could have done this, and it might have worked a bit better. I'm more open to that kind of like feedback and response because it just makes you a better worker. And even little things, you can't take it personally because nothing's perfect. No one's had a perfect wrestling match because of the nature of what wrestling is. It's a free form, like, it's a free form piece of art. It's what's it called? I don't know. You know what I mean? It's
always changing. It's always changing.
It's done on the fly. It's not like a dance routine that you sit and practice over and over again. You might see like diversity or something like that, and they've spent months practicing all those moves. You've just gone in the back and go like, all right, I might do this or do this, and then dive across for the finish. And you're like, okay, you've got to work it on the fly. It improvised. It's the last true improvised art form. And there's nothing else like that really. So I don't know. It's a very strange thing, wrestling, because it is both mainstream and not mainstream. And sports councils and stuff, they don't want to know. It's not sport. And arts council and things, they don't want to know. It's not an art either. But it is an art form. It's a performance at the end of the day. It's physical theatre. And it's just, I don't know. I kind of lost
why do you think that is? 'Cause I look at all the different wrestling scenes like around the world, and I interviewed Shaukat from Malaysia. A couple months after our interview, I'd seen him post on social media that in Malaysia, where wrestling's only been there for 5, 6, 7 years, something like that, that's been recognized as an actual sport, which means they now get access to like sporting bodies training facilities and stuff like that.
Funding and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's happening in Malaysia, but here in the UK, where people are doing Wembley Stadium, ICW are doing the Hydro, All Stars managing to do all these dates where they're the biggest. Well, they've got more dates than anybody other than WWE, essentially, but still not getting recognised as a sport. Why do you think that is?
Well, as I say, I don't know. It seems like just no one wants to touch it. Like as I say, like a lot of sports councils don't view it as a real sport, and arts councils don't view it as an art form. And it needs, and I think this is one of the key issues to why we had the speaking out movement, because there's no regulation, or not why we had the movement, but why we ended up having that movement is the end point, because there is no regulation, because anybody can buy a ring, set it up, run a show or run a training school. You don't know. Like, I know when I first went training, many long years ago, like I turned up at some building with some mats down and like a wrestling ring. I didn't know the guy. A guy called Alan Johnson.
Okay.
I went for me, my brother, and Colossus Kennedy.
Yeah.
We went to Sheffield one time for this at this 393 club. We turned up, and we were messing about, like young, like, oh yeah, we're going to be wrestlers. This is going to be great. This guy called Alan Johnson turned up and started like going through a few bits. I didn't know, like, as I say, wrist lad from a wristwatch and all that. But, that was kind of my first training, and then I started training properly with Sticks down in Nottingham, and I lived down there. And I think I'm actually quite lucky to have trained with him, because at that time when I started training back in the mid 2000s, there was not a lot of reputable schools around. Not a lot at all. And of those schools that are around now, even less.
Yeah.
So like the fact that I got started training really with Sticks was really lucky, because he's a really knowledgeable guy, and a great trainer. and he's been seen by some of his trainees, like Joe Connors and Gabriel Kidd, both like world standard guys.
Yeah.
I was lucky to start training with him, and he again, when he was training, was like, if you want to work for like the big companies, and at the time it was All Star, like that was where you aimed to get to. Like, I want to work so I can get to All Star, and then maybe like I'll get seen by someone at WWE and all that. But that was the route in. That was back in the mid 2000s. Wrestling was a completely different place to how it is now, and it's weird. I think because I see some young guys like, I don't know, like Miles Kamen or like the Young Guns or Joe Nelson, all these people, and they're like young lads, 18, 19, 20, whatever, and they're like, I imagine their view of wrestling and the wrestling scene is completely different based on how they start now. They see promotions and there's entrance ways and there's Titantron videos and things like that. When I started, it's 3 men and a dog coming through a leisure centre door in bright lights in front of 12 people. Like, it's worlds apart how wrestling in Britain has developed in the years I've been in the job. Like, one of my first shows, as I say, 6 people or something in the audience, and then you get shows at Wembley or like Butlin's ones where there's thousands of people there. It's it's just changed. Incredible. It is incredible how much it's grown over the years. And every year someone's like, it's going to be the year that it breaks, and it keeps getting bigger, but never quite reaches that final level. I think, I don't know why people don't. Getting back to your original comment, I don't know why nobody has I don't know why wrestling hasn't been able to get like arts funding or some kind of like backing or regulation, because I guess it's seen as too niche or not important, or
well, that's summed up in the whole pandemic, but like debacle, like speaking our movement aside, when it was in the chambers of like, right, what's getting funded and stuff like that, and pro wrestling got announced, and they're just fucking laughing at it.
Yeah, of course. Because
how does that feel to like yourself, where we're in the midst of a global pandemic and one thing that's essentially on its ass, a lot of people where they did this for the full-time job won't get all these grants or anything like that, having to find different jobs, and you've got the people running the country laughing at it.
Well, I mean, the people running the country are laughing at anyone in the arts at the minute, if you ask me. So, just like, well, I know you've trained all this for all your life, but retrain, mate. Sorry. And I suppose wrestling is still like, it's very grassroots and small time. There's not a lot of big business, big money outside of maybe NGW and, outside of the camps, really. Yeah. Like, you run independent shows, maybe like, Progress and stuff, make money in that. But a lot of shows, it is shoestring, it's family, it's made by the people who are doing the shows and things.
Yeah.
So I can guess to see like it's not maybe as important as some business with hundreds of people in the employment and where these people their families are relying on it. But British wrestling, like in terms of people being able to support themselves and actually be full-time wrestlers, the last 5-6 years, more people have been able to do it than ever before, as far as outside of maybe the heyday of the like 70s and 80s.
No, definitely. With that being said, like NGW, when did you first get started there?
I started there at their first anniversary show. So I think that was 2009, 2010, something like that. I started training with Sticks down in Nottingham because I was living there at the time.
2008 probably, because my first show was the 5th anniversary show, which was 2013.
Yeah, well, it might have been 2008 then. Yeah, it was their first anniversary show. I'd moved back, like, I didn't really know much about British wrestling at all. Then a friend of mine introduced me to it. We started training with Sticks because I lived in Nottingham. I came back to Hull and I was like, oh, right, well, I guess that's wrestling off the cards kind of thing. And I kind of like went around, tried a few different places further afield, and then found out there was, there was a place in Hull. This I went to see a PWA show in Hull, which was a terrible promotion. And I'm not going to make any bones about it. Awful. I'd been training maybe about a year. I was no great shakes, but I went to watch their show at Working Men's Club at the top of Beverley Road in Hull, which it's about 20 people in the audience maybe. And I was watching the guys going, well, I haven't been training long, but I'm way better than these guys already. So I was like, this is class. I'm totally going to get booked on shows. But then I found out about NGW through Nathan Cruz, I believe, because I'd been working in Grimsby for RDW, another sadly defunct promotion. And I met Nathan through that, and he was like, yeah, why don't you train in Hull? And I was like, there's a training school in Hull all this time. But yeah, I started there, and obviously got in with all those lads, and it started off as a small promotion, like many others at the time, in the mid to late noughties, doing the Eastmount Centre, which was what was it, like a council-run kind of?
It's like a community sports
community centre kind of thing, yeah. And if we had 80 people in the audience, we'd be like, good show tonight, lads, good show. We got 80 people in, and to see it grow as well, unbelievable. From that, that first anniversary show, there, 70, 80 people, this was a good draw, to doing Butlins in front of 2,000 people. It's mad. Or even Hull City Hall in front of 1,500, 2,000 people.
Yeah.
Bonkers. You never would have thought British wrestling would have been able to do that back in the day. But
no, it's crazy. And even, again, to our earlier point, a lot of these big popular internet fans or internet companies would dream for attendances like that. And I mentioned 5th anniversary was my show. And it was the first wrestling show I'd ever gone to. So I was like, am I going to like it? I walk into the community centre and I'm just like, still not sure if I'm going to enjoy this. And then the show happened and started following it. Obviously, I met Nathan through a mutual friend and Myers. Then I ended up starting helping out with some of the shows and stuff like that. And I believe the match, you'd have been against Kaz, I believe.
Possible 5th anniversary. I was trying to think actually. I think I might have a DVD of it somewhere, but yeah, I can't remember. I'm terrible. Some people I know have an absolute photographic memory for every match, but I'm terrible.
I spoke to Eric Isaacson, and he's been wrestling 20 years or something like that. And I'd be like, oh, have you worked with this person? And he was like, yep, it was on this day in this city in this venue, and he could do that with anything you asked. And I was just like, how do you remember that?
Unbelievable. It's like people who go, oh, I've had this many I've had 276 matches in the last 6 months or whatever, and you're like, how do you remember how many matches you have? I can barely remember what I had for my breakfast this morning, so I don't know. I don't attribute to that to any unprotected chair shots or anything like that. So
but I believe that show, was it that show? Yeah, it'd have had Myers and Cruz against each other. Rampage finally made his return to NGW, and then I just think it was
was that Myers and Rampage in the main event?
No, so I think that'd have been afterwards. So the match there was Myers and Nathan in the no contest, and it was Rampage returning. So I think it was his first appearance since being in America.
Yeah.
So I remember the people I went with was like, oh, and I was just like, who the fuck's this guy? And then he did what he did, and I was like, he's a fucking beast.
Yeah, he is an absolute beast. But well, yeah, there's another one. If I think NGW was the road in for Rampage to be to just the kind of superstar he is in terms of not just doing the camps. He did the camps for years and was as good as he always was, but no one saw it, if you know that, in terms of internet fans. Then he started doing NGW and he started getting seen by more people and started doing more independent wrestling. And then everyone was like on the Rampage train, like, wow, this guy is world-class talent. Like, and everyone started realizing that. But again, that could have been if he'd have stayed on All Star and never done anything else. Like if he'd come back from America and just gone on All Star and stayed there, then he may not be where he is now. He might have still been because a phenomenal talent, but you never know. Like where those choices end up leading you.
No, definitely. Like again, as your career's kind of grown and NGW's grown over the years, again going from 20, 30, 40 people to selling out whole city hall and doing the sports arena and things like that. And I know we mentioned speaking out, and obviously we can't really avoid it. Your career does involve people that were mentioned in the speaking out, and although we don't condone it, I think a lot of it be a discredit to your body of work for some of the stuff you've done, because I've seen you go from and I think it comes down to like your ability in NGW storytelling. You lost Amigos run, and you've gone from being this massive big baby face to then turning on your partner Ligero, we'll say it. But then you became one of the best heels that, and I'm not blowing smoke, one of the best heels that I'd seen in wrestling, because it was just so organic, and you changed the look, you lost the hair, the beard came, you're coming out with the leather jacket, and it's like, I just thought it was a great part of probably your career.
Yeah, no, to be fair, it was. I think that was kind of part of the secret, I think, to NGW's like continued success was the storytelling, like the whole storytelling of that kind of arc with Ligero took years, literally years to like ferment. Which if it was a TV product like WWE weekly TV, might have been over in 6 weeks or a couple of months or something. But because of the way that British shows work and stuff, but it went from me being like a comedy heel, like with a fake Mexican, vaguely racist kind of gimmick, to oh well, you're doing this kind of Mexican thing. We've got this other guy who does Mexican thing. Why don't you be friends? And I think okay, but we started like NGW was. I'm not going to say it was the first, but one of the first to kind of try and up production values. So like a lot of British wrestling at the time, as I say, you come in through a leisure centre door or a curtain, and there's not lights, there's not any of that stuff. We tried to get videos on the switch.
It always looked different. Southside, great company, but as I was starting out, like after that show, I started looking at all the different British wrestling stuff. I could never get into Southside wrestling because I'd been used to what WWE and TNA had been putting out there and WCW. My first one into British wrestling, NGW, and made sure they had like sliding doors.
Yeah, the sliding doors was a
value.
massive thing. Like it seems like a tiny thing, but if you go to a show and a guy comes out of a curtain, you're like, fine, that's cool. But if you go to a show and there's a big entranceway and the doors slide open like on Star Trek, and you walk out, you're like, hey, this is a big deal. And it was still, it was all smoke and mirrors. Like it was still shoestring budget. We just managed to be lucky and have people who were willing to put the work in to make it look like $1 million, as it were. It looked far more than it actually was. It was all all sticky back plastic and Blue Peter stuff, but
it was better than just a curtain.
It was better than a curtain, and it looked amazing, to be fair. And that the storytelling, as I say, was like born out of people like traveling together and us coming up with ideas, and the whole thing, as I say, I started off as a comedy heel, and then they put me with the other Mexican. But he was winning matches, I was losing every match, kind of thing. I had a losing streak, kind of thing. But the way it turned around, I had come out as a heel, like normal, like bad guy. But I kept losing so often that people knew I was going to lose. So it was like, yeah, okay, fine, this guy does the job, whatever. And then we started doing videos going, oh, I want to win. Oh, like, how can you teach me how to win? My Mexican friend, all that kind of stuff. So we built up this kind of odd couple tag team, which, was easy story to tell. One guy's a goof, one guy's serious. He doesn't want the. We eventually end up tagging together, and the whole tag tournament was built like one of the best reactions I ever had up until that point was literally the build. So I'd been this goof, and Ligero had to save me in every like tag match. I'm getting beaten up, and he makes the save. And then when it comes to the final of the tag tournament, and he's getting beaten up, he's taking the heat, he's getting pounded all over, and he finally makes that tag to me. Literally, yeah, I'm holding out my hand, and he's crawling over, and like the intake of breath as he finally, like, there's slight pause before he makes that tag to me, and the roof blew off the place. Without blowing, without sounding like Billy Big Bollocks. Like, yeah, like it was a massive reaction, and that was because of that long-term storytelling of people seeing me going from this like lovable loser to finally they're going to be that big reaction, that big kind of turnaround, that big evolution of my character. And then we went on the babyface run, popular. We end up like. Yeah, then we had a match together to say, oh, who's the best? And I go away for a while. I come back, I betray him. And then the whole build for me being a bad guy, dropping the accent, becoming more vicious and changing my look, having a hair versus hair match. Like, that's pretty rare in British wrestling. I managed like two things I've managed to have in my wrestling career. Well, there's three, actually. Three matches I've had where I've thought, yeah, not a lot of people get to do this. Was having a hair versus hair match, where obviously I shaved my head. In case people don't know, I used to have very long hair, but I cut it off, obviously. And then this, like, so like I did hair versus hair, and I've also done a casket match, which was quite funny as well.
Like get into the casket match. Who and where was that?
Well, it's another one. Unfortunately, my body of work is limited to certain people who are not a persona non gratis at the moment. But yeah, it was a casket match up in the northeast against Ligero, and basically we got booked in the storyline based off the strength of the NGW stuff. They were just like, that was a really good story. I want to kind of recreate it here, and we ended it with a casket match because why not?
Why not?
But that was fun, something different, and I think like. There's a lot of these gimmick matches that people do and things like that. But I don't think people make the most of them as they should, in terms of if you have a ladder match, the key thing of the match should be you've got a ladder. Like, you've got to find your place on the card and your match that you're in and make it special. You have 6 singles matches on a wrestling show. What makes them all different? If everyone's doing, the hybrid style that everyone does now, everyone's jumping off the top rope, everyone's kicking real hard, everyone's doing wrestling, everyone's doing big slams and stuff like that. It's, it's all the same.
Yeah.
So if you've got a tag match, you've got to make that tag match feel like a tag match. Why is it different? Because everybody gets involved and the tag partner like can help. And that's what makes it different. That's what makes it stand out. Like, a pet hate I have of wrestling is when a tag match goes on and it's basically just 2 singles matches. It'll start out 2 guys just wrestle and then tag out, and then the next 2 guys just wrestle. You just squeeze 2 matches in there.
Yeah.
Whereas you've got to work to that. So something like a casket match, the whole gimmick is the casket. You can do all the wrestling you want, like drop kicks and arm drags and flips off the top rope, but they're going to do that in all the other matches. What you've got is you've got that casket there. You make use of it. If you're a ladder match, make use of it. You're in a hardcore match, you make everything mean something. And in a singles match, it's about telling a story, which I think is something that slightly lacking today in a lot of indie shows, is storytelling.
Yeah.
Like, people do amazing stuff, like the athleticism that's on display these days at wrestling shows. Unbelievable. But I think it's characters kind of taken a back seat. And I think, again, that's tied to this hybrid style, like I was speaking about. Again, like, if everyone does the same thing and everyone is Superman, no one is Superman. Like, one thing I used to like was one thing I liked about wrestling was the crazy characters
Yeah.
and the different styles. Like, how is, Hawk going to fight Bret Hart? Because Hawk's a brawler, he's going to come in and beat you up. But Bret Hart's a thinking man. Like, he does his technical wrestling.
Yeah.
But nowadays, everybody does everything, and it takes I think, personally, in my opinion, it takes the like individuality out of it. It all becomes very homogenized because everyone goes to the top rope, and so when someone does it, like you see like a massive guy go, like on AEW, you've got
Luchasaurus doing flips.
huh? Yeah, Luchasaurus doing flips, and it's amazing that he does that. But when he does that every week, you're like, yeah, it's cool. He does that, like, and he's a massive guy who does it. So he does that, and the guy kicks out. Fine, all right. But then a guy half his size does it, and the guy pins him. It's like, but perfectly told in the Young Bucks versus FTR.
Yeah.
Like that match was like from my opinion as a wrestler and all that. It was a brilliantly told story, and like Cash Wheeler does the 450 at the end. And like he's never done, he goes on about like, oh, just fists, no flips and all that. But in the story, he's like, well, I can do this. And yeah, he's been able to do it, but has he done it before? No, because he hasn't needed to. But when it worked in the story, everyone was like, brilliant, amazing. You don't have to do everything that you can do. And I think
definitely.
that's something that a lot of young wrestlers are just like, I'm going to do everything that I know in every single match. But then it gets tired because everyone's seen it. Like, if you've done a 450, cool. And then you do another 450, cool. But, 8th or 9th time you've seen a 450, no one's buying it anymore. So, I don't know. But that's just my personal thoughts.
No, 100%. And like the beauty of that tag match as well was Cash missing. Like it essentially cost them the match. And it kind of proved why they shouldn't be doing the flips. They can do it, but... And it's like the first time they kind of... it's kind of like selling themselves, like they're going against their beliefs and doing what the other guys do, and then it's not paying off. I like the storytelling, what they did with it.
Yeah, brilliant. But like those two guys, like FTR, like they're you can watch them and you see what's the difference between a good wrestler and a great wrestler.
Yeah.
I think like there's so many tiny little things that they do that are almost unnoticeable, but when they're not there, you kind of, if you're in the wrestling bubble, there's a lot of things we do in wrestling that people are used to doing in wrestling because they've seen it when they've watched wrestling growing up.
Yeah.
But they don't think about why they do that. Like one of the kind of things that I've got mentioned by non-wrestling fans whenever they've watched wrestling, like I've dragged them to a show or something like that. They always like, why do they, when they pin them, do they wiggle their legs? When people get rolled up into a pin and then they just wiggle the legs, right? And like we've all watched wrestling, we've all seen Shawn Michaels like wiggle his legs and like, yep, that's what you do. But to people who aren't wrestling fans or like, haven't grown up watching that, they're like, what the hell are they doing? Why is he wiggling his legs? Like, it looks daft. But we've all grown up thinking, yeah, that's just what you do. That's trying to escape the pin. And it doesn't look legit.
Yeah.
So like it's tiny little things like that I notice FTR doing that steps them above. Like any people can do great moves and people can like be like real fluid in that, but it's those tiny little things that add believability because it's so easy to ruin the believability and like break the suspension of disbelief by doing like little things that just you wouldn't do in real life or a real fight, and it just kind of weird. Like and then you add these little things in, it makes it look a little bit more real. I think there's one bit in that match. One of the Young Bucks gives it the old indie back kick to Dax. Boom. He's selling and he goes to run up the corner and like moonsault onto him or something. But just before he runs, Dax just grabs for his tights, tries to grab him to slow him down. And he misses him, and then he gets hit with a move. And it's little things like that that make the difference between just standing there looking like, oh, this man's going to jump on me now. I'll just stand here and wait for the thing. It can all be edited out with clever like camera edit, but if you're watching it, like it'll totally break. It might be the tiniest little thing, but if you're stood there waiting a little bit too long, it looks fake, and it can ruin the suspension of disbelief. And it is those little things that I think separate a good from a great wrestler.
No, definitely. It's why I hate the dives to the outside where everybody just starts hugging each other and things like that. Like,
I mean, my personal pet. I mean, I'm trying not to get down on like because I like indie wrestling and it's great and like there's a lot of stuff, but I'm kind of being a bit negative on it. But multiple dives. That's the thing that I hate in modern wrestling now. When I see a guy like do a suicide dive, boom, run back in the ring, run off the ropes, come out and do another one, or do like 3 in a row, and you're like, well, I know dives are kind of played out a bit now. Like he's going to end up like stomping. When in the 80s everyone was like, well, he's not hitting him, he's stomping his foot. Is he hitting him? Now, if you do that, it's obvious. As soon as that happens, you'll have 10 dads in the crowd of taking their kids, and as soon as they see someone stomp, they're like, told you, it's fake, it's all rubbish, pointless. Yeah. And I think it's the same with, it's going to be like that with dives, because they're so overdone, that they're losing their impact.
Yeah, definitely. There was one person that I do like hitting a dive. I think I don't really watch WWE as much now, but Escobar, who was El Hijo de Fantasma, who's King Cuerno in Lucha Underground, because it looks like he's getting shot out of a cannon. And it's like, okay, that guy hits you, it's going to hurt. And he hits it with like such ferocity. Or Haskins and Callahan, when they had that match at NGW and then they had one at Progress, they did a similar spot where they'd be flying out and doing it. And again, it made it believable because of the way it's connecting. So I don't mind if it's every now and again and it's the heat of the moment. Like them two was beating the shit out of each other. So, okay, really does want to hurt and stuff like that. But I think JR said it best. Why is everybody diving out to you can't win the match out there.
But it's all about the sell as well. I mean, and as you say, about the storytelling. Like, if there is a reason for it, sure. Like, he really wants to hurt him, and he's going in and he's coming out and flying over the top and smashing him because that's what he wants to do. But if you've just got like a random 2 guys, here we are Thursday night, first time meeting up, and this guy's like diving over the top rope 6 times, like. I think it weakens the move, makes the move look weak, and also like the risk factor of it. Like, look what happened to poor Big Luke, poor Luke Menzies. Just a normal dive, like nothing massively fancy, and it was horrible what happened to him.
I know.
And like that risk for the reaction that you get now because it's so overdone. Someone does a dive. Yeah, there's a bit of an ooh and jumps over the top.
Yeah.
But if you're risking your health and like it's called high risk for a reason, all that, So I just don't. I don't know. I think I don't want to. People. It is an art form, as I say, and people are free to do whatever they like. And that's the way of that is wrestling. But like personally, in my opinion, I think it hurts the overall presentation, unless there is reason for it, and you can find reason for it, like if you tell a decent story.
Yeah, I think like look at Canadian Destroyer. When Petey Williams first did that was one of the most amazing moves I've ever seen, and now it's just it's not even a near fall now. It's barely even a move. Like people hit it and then don't go for a pin now.
Yeah.
It's a flipping power driver and you don't go for the cover.
I mean, it's wrestling like anything, it evolves over time and it develops and people want more extreme takes. Like if you look at like a horror movie from the 70s to a horror movie now, or like, music, like people going, wow, Judas Priest, this is like the heaviest thing I've ever heard. Yeah. And then you go to now and you hear some death metal band, you're like, wow, people always want more extreme.
Yeah.
And there's a limit, I think, to wrestling. I don't know what that limit is. I'm not saying that we've reached it yet, but there are limits to the human body and what it can do. And the more you give away, the less place you've got to go.
Yeah.
Like when you've done a 620 flip, dude, like how much until it's 720 or something like that. Like once people have seen that, they're like, that's cool, and a few people have done it. Who's going to be the one who's doing the 1080 flip or something like that? And yeah, it's diminishing returns, I think, with stuff like that. So while you have to kind of ration it out a bit. Otherwise, if you blow all your load straight away, then you've got nothing for later on.
Exactly. So you mentioned earlier with the tag win and that crowd reaction and things like that. What was it like when you got told, right, we're flipping your heel? Because again, I think the beauty of, especially with NGW, because they weren't sometimes running every month, they'd be going a little bit more frequent, like every couple of months at times. But as you said, that story's been slowly told over years, and I think that makes it different to what we see on TV because people are actually growing up with that feud. NGW have such a loyal fan base. So people have grown up from being, say, 7-year-old kids to now being like early teens, but still liking the wrestling and stuff like that and still coming along. So then it's like their childhood superhero, essentially, turning heel on their other childhood superhero.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I was, I think we'd reached the limit, like of where I'd gone to from being this, as I say, this comedy heel who'd come good and finally we'd lost the tag titles and we'd had our match between us as friends, and there wasn't a lot of places we could go. The natural, well, as a tag team, they're going to break up at some point, but. So it's kind of the natural way to go. Like either I went off and did something else, or I came back and built this. And I thought the way we'd all talked about it and the way it was going to be done, I thought it was brilliant. And again, with the limit of my character, like being a comedy kind of fake Mexican has limited shelf life. Like a lot of things. So like all the not comparing myself to these people, but like all the greats in wrestling, like. You have to evolve with the times.
Yeah.
Undertaker changes over time. Jericho changes over time. As I say, I'm not comparing myself to those two. But yeah, my character had to change. And the way I did it was so like sudden and unexpected and going from being like a popular babyface.
Yeah.
And as you say, the whole crowd, a lot of them have grown up and it has a very loyal fan base. Like, I know you've spoken to Reese and Rogan on here.
Yeah.
Like Rogan, he grew up. He used to come to NGW. He was like 13 or 14.
Yeah.
And he'd sit in the front row and watch the shows. And now I'm on shows with him. I'm taking him to shows and things like that. And yeah, so I guess it is weird that people have grown up like in the business and watched me. But yeah, it was a big it was a great way to turn. I was happy with the way it was, and I thought that is the logical extension of the storyline we were telling. Yeah. And then it built to 3 matches, which as I say, like a lot of my career is against El Ligero, who's obviously not in wrestling now for his various things he's done and all that, but he was the way the story was told and me hunting him down, him not wanting to fight me because I was his friend. So we had the first match, and again, like even the trio of matches that we had at City Hall as part of that storyline, they told a story throughout as well, like even between the matches. So like there was the story of the match, and then there was the overarching storyline, which I think really resonated with people. People got it. So I came out first. I've been goading him for months, interfering with his matches and things, and finally I get my hands on him, and he doesn't want to fight me because we were friends.
Yeah.
Then I beat him, and I tried to pull his mask off, Oh no, I do. I take his mask and I run off with it and stuff. With great shame, blah blah blah. Then it comes back, and in the second match, he wants that vengeance. But oh yeah, at the end of the first match, um, I think I go for him with a chair, and he turns it round. He's got the chair, and he's going to hit me with it. And I'm saying, go on, then hit me. Like, show me who you really are. And he does it. He hesitates, and it
Yeah.
allows me to blah blah blah. And then the second match, he comes back fired up because he's, I've taken his mask, and he's angry, and he's like, you know what? I'm not going to take this from you. And he wins, so we come to the rubber match. And again, it all comes down, and again, to that reaction I got.
Yeah.
We're in that same situation at the end of the third match. He's taken it. It's a last man standing. He's got the chair in his hands, and I'm there on my knees, and I'm screaming at him like, "Go on, in, hit me, show me who you really are." And I don't know. It feels like a kind of success when you get that huge pop when the
Yeah.
babyface hits the heel in the face with the chair. You're like, in theory, this is bad, but because of the way the story is told, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And he hits me with a chair and wins the match. And like again, massive, massive reaction. And it's all down to storytelling. Like,
100%. Because I think like the inclusion with Myers were because it was you didn't just do match one, match two, match three. You had the
mm,
intertwining with Myers, which again the other big baby face
mm,
of NGW, and you did the hair versus hair match and stuff
yeah.
like that. And
And there
so
was some matches with Liam Lazarus as well.
yeah,
Like it was all interspersed. It wasn't just straight up, but like
yeah,
the crowd were into it and responded to it. And even after that, I was like off NGW shows for a while. When I came back, like I don't know, it must have been a year, 2 years later. People still remembered who I was, which I
yeah,
was shocked.
yeah,
People have short memories, especially children. It might not be the same kids like a couple of
yeah.
years down the line who are watching the shows, but still, I got a reaction when I came out, and I felt like, yeah, it's all right. I've obviously made some kind of impression.
No, definitely. Because I always remember I can't remember which show it had been, but there wasn't a chair under the ring. And we needed a chair under the ring because I think it was the first time you was going to use a chair. And I
Right.
think it was where you was coming across being this dick, but you hadn't done anything too malicious. It was only verbally. And I think it might be Myers that you was hitting with the chair. And they're like, right, Kurt, can you take the chair out the match before and just sit in it? So I was sat next to Stevie, doing the timekeeping. And then that way you've got a chair there. And I was just thinking, it's going to be you'll get a pop, but I think it might just be flat if you just pick up the chair and then go batter him. So that's when I was like, right, I think it was literally you'd have been behind the curtain waiting. I told whoever was reffing the match before, right, tell Dara I'm not getting out the chair. He's just got to throw me out of it. And I think it was that one where the it was one of the best reactions I've had personally. And again, not to blame my smoke up like I asked, like, but I just
That
thought
carries the show. This kid carries the show.
I know. Well, the story might not have worked if I didn't tell you to.
Yeah,
Nah, but
yeah,
I just feel it got that reaction.
yeah. But again, that's a little thing that if I'd have just asked you to move, or you'd have stood up and given me the chair, or just stood up and like backed off, and I'd got the chair, it wouldn't have been anything. No one will have noticed. But a tiny thing like that is like, oh, he pushed that guy out of the chair and took his chair.
Yeah,
Like, this guy is a dick. And it's those little things that build that atmosphere and that like impression of someone.
yeah,
Like, I could just come out and go, "You are bad," and I hear the sports team around here sucks, and people would be like, it's a lot easier to get people to like, but it's that difference between cheap heat, like going,
yeah,
the sports team here sucks, and actually building up that impression of, I hate this guy. Like, I want to see this guy get beaten up.
yeah.
Um, Actually, another thing like that was actually a kind of a proud moment of that was that my ex girlfriend was in one of the crowds of one of them,
All right.
and she told me like afterwards, like there was a kid next to her who was crying as soon as my music hit, and she actually had to show
Yeah,
him. She actually had to show him pictures of me,
yeah,
like with my pet hamster, and go, "Oh no, he's a really nice guy. Actually, he's just playing a character." But when there's kids like crying because your music's playing, and like you know, this guy's obviously you get that reaction, and that's what you do it for. You know, I think that's why people do wrestling, to have that, or any kind of art form, is to get a reaction.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you know, it's supposed to make you feel something. If you can make, like, my idea was to be the kind of arsehole that you don't like, and it's making kids. I mean, I don't want to make kids cry all the time, but you know, they have that visceral reaction. They want to like go, I want to see this guy get beaten up, and that's it. You can be an internet fan and go to a show and go, excellent work rate, excellent work rate. You know, 450 splash, brilliant running spots. But they don't get into it like a child, or someone who's you know, even someone who's pissed up at an 18+ show and just wants to shout and enjoy the show. They're getting into it and they're having a good time. And I just, you know, sometimes you see fans like go to shows and, you know, all this thing about people being negative about stuff. It's easy to be negative about stuff.
Yeah.
And like, but they're not enjoying the show. They're going as wrestling fans, and they're not losing themselves in it. And I think that's what you've got to do with, or any good piece of art gets a good reaction. Like, you could do 100 flips in front of, like, I think one of the weird things I think that's very backwards at the minute is like the way that it seems like the smaller the crowd, the more work you have to put in, which I think is kind of backward. Like, you don't have to do as much to get more of a reaction from a big, like, family show crowd than you would 50 like hardcore wrestling fans who want to see proper wrestling. And that's nothing against them. They've watched a lot of wrestling and they know what they like. It's just taste.
Yeah.
But the amount of risk and effort and, you know, stuff that you have to put into a smaller match is less than what you would for a show in front of thousands of people, which I think is weird. But I guess that's the nature of having those family crowds who are not more easily entertained. And as I say, it's not the wrestling is worse. It is like you're painting your picture, but you're not using as many colors, maybe.
No, definitely. Like with your body of work with NGW as well. Like, I think that turn was needed. I think you, from that moment, and it's no disrespect to what happened before the heel, but you was just Dara's on the card, or but then before that heel turn, and he was like, what's Dara going to do next? And I think it was a case of, like, all of a sudden, he was like, well, what do we do now? And then before you know it, you're the biggest segment on the show every single time, and places selling out, you're making kids cry and stuff like that, and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Every tear is a feather in my cap.
What other, like, either proud moments or other opponents that you've enjoyed working with, like, especially with NGW, like, what matches are your standout?
Well, in terms of proud moments, like, no, there's not that many. I was actually talking about, like, going back to the whole Dennis Stamp or Am I Anvil thing. Like, there was British Wrestling Roundup that used to be on Challenge on national TV, and I had a match on there once, and I was like, cool, I'm going to be on TV. Yeah, okay, it's at 2 a.m. and it's whatever, but I'm still on it. They're going to review this match I had, and they put it on, and the person reviewing it just talked about my opponent all the way through the match. Didn't talk about me at all, and I was like, cool. But not even about the match, just about how they didn't like that person. I was like, okay, cool, all right, nice.
What about me?
yeah, okay, cool. Like, you could have just at least a perfunctory mention of me, but and another one was after a absolutely amazing, like, NGW Skegness Butlin show.
Yeah,
Adam Maxted over in the main event, big Royal Rumble, huge pop, great crowd. We're taking down the ring afterwards. We've got curtains round to stop people looking in. And I see, like, a family, like a dad and a son, just peeking around the corner. So I go over to say, oh, we're taking the ring down. And he just said, oh, I'm sorry, I'm real sorry. Like, but you're, like, one of my favorite wrestlers, and, like, you're really good and all that. I was like, oh, thanks, mate. Had a little chat with him, and he gave his kid a high five, and he was like, can I get a picture? I was like, sure, okay, cool. I was like, that was nice. And then as he left, he was like, thanks, Rampage. Cheers, mate. Cheers, mate.
Oh, but that popped everybody.
I think, on the one hand, being compared to one of the greatest wrestlers in the world, in my opinion, is really nice, really kind. But on the other hand, mate,
What did you say when he said that?
he was walking off. I just, I died a little inside and went back to taking the ring down. Went home, burnt my tights, and here we are now. Yeah, but in terms of actual wrestling, my work with Ligero, to be fair, at NGW is one of the highlights. I think creatively being able to have my input and see the story unfold and the way it did. We had some good matches, good reactions. It was really great. Another one, I suppose, I don't know. Obviously, I didn't invent it, but I feel I've made it sort of my own. Is the tequila drinking match, which is a match I've done about 3 or 4 times. Usually, I mean, touch wood, I've never had any serious injuries while wrestling. But when I've been injured or tired or something like that, I've had the tequila drinking match, which is basically, everyone's seen all the head drops and whatever. Let's have a drinking contest. And I like comedy wrestling. It's one of those things. I think, again, some people see it as an easy route. They're like, well, I don't have to do much physically, so comedy wrestling's easy. But that's a lie, and that is just wrong. Comedy wrestling is an art form, and I think it's a really nuanced art form as well, that I think a lot of people don't realize, because some people just go, oh, I can do comedy, I'll do something daft, and it's lowest common denominator, sub Mrs. Brown's Boys kind of rubbish. And it's just it makes me cringe, and I hate it. And I see it a lot even on the big companies. When Jericho started, it was hilarious, but nowadays, this, I think there's too much comedy, and it takes away from the serious stuff. If it goes completely ridiculous to the point of absolute farce, and then next up you've got here's Cody Rhodes versus MJF, and they really hate each other. How your mindset's thrown out.
Yeah.
So I think comedy wrestling is something that's done well. You either go balls to the wall,
Grado.
Grado's brilliant, but Grado's a special case. Well, not a special case, but some people do comedy wrestling thinking it's easy or whatever, but it's not, because it depends on the person. Grado is a naturally funny person.
Yeah.
He's like that without blowing smoke up his ass or anything like that. But he's a bit of a Peter Kay kind of. You can imagine him reading the phone book and making it funny.
Yeah.
He's naturally engaging kind of guy. And again, one of my favorite comedy wrestlers, Madman Manson, not been
so funny,
but brilliant. And he knew his place. He knew what he could do, and he could work. He could really go if he wanted to, but he didn't need to. And I think a lot of people, comedy wrestling now, once you've done a lot of comedy stuff and it's funny, then people go back to doing competitive wrestling matches.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make any sense, because okay, we've just seen you goof around and do all this silly stuff, and now you're fighting. People aren't invested then, and then you're wasting your time doing oh, we'll do this top rope superplex or something. It's fine, but they've watched you chase each other around the ring, so they're not gonna buy that as a big move. And people putting a lot of strain on themselves and risk for no reason. And I just think comedy wrestling is an odd one. But this tequila match I did, it's basically they beat me up for a bit, and then I challenge him to a drinking match, and it gets real stupid and silly. But the whole point is that there's basically no wrestling in the match.
Yeah.
It's a comedy segment, and I think wrestling is cabaret, isn't it? I like a wrestling show to have a bit of everything.
Yeah.
And it's about where that's placed. You have. Well, I think you've mentioned it with Myers before about the structure of a show, and how if you're on first, you don't need to do everything.
Yeah.
You don't need to go 100 miles an hour and do 100 near falls, because you're just going to burn people out for the main event. But I think it's linked slightly to the way that wrestling is consumed nowadays. Now people are less likely to watch a whole show. They might watch just a match.
Yeah.
So they see a match, and you're like, I go on first and I do a match with someone, and there's maybe one near fall or something like that. There's not loads of craziness. I show that online. Someone goes, well, there's nothing that impressive about that. It's just a match.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, in terms of the show, it left the crowd still hungry to watch more as such. Whereas, like, if I went out there and, like, absolutely tore the house down and did every move under the sun, like 450 splashes, tombstone pile drivers, and all sorts of stuff, and then gets to the next match, they've got nowhere to go because they've seen it all. So then you get to the grudge match, maybe it's third, and it's like two guys who are building up to this fight for ages, and they do a 450 splash and a tombstone. Like, well, we've already seen that in the first match. So
I always remember, I think it was one of the shows it's either Manchester or London, Progress, and I'd gone with Cruz, and again, he's somebody that is old school mentality, or if he's a heel, and stuff like that. And on that, I think it was on that show, two of the biggest heels again on the show as well, other than Nathan. One of them, I think it was a triple threat, started the match where she's the only heel, but ran and did a running drop kick like a shotgun drop kick to start the match.
Mm.
And then the other one, in the other match, doing standing shooting star presses.
Right.
And
I mean, it's really impressive, but how do you get people to hate you when they see that and go, well, that's class. Like, I like this guy. But there again, a lot of wrestling now, the money is not so much in the booking, it's in the merchandise. Yeah. So if you go, wow, this guy's cool, I'll buy his T-shirt, then the wrestler wins because, it might not be like for the show, and they go like, oh, well, you did loads of stuff, and like you did a cool shotgun drop kick, but then like, but they're selling merch at the end of the day, and they're selling like 5 T-shirts because everyone thought they were real cool. Then that makes, that's better for the wrestler than them going out there and going, oh, I'm going to, be a heel and be a bad guy. And then like, oh, the kids don't want to buy his T-shirt because he doesn't do flips or whatever. But I mean, I suppose it's about the strength of your character kind of thing, I guess.
No, I think the placement is a very important thing. Like, I used to always hear everybody talking about Battle of Los Angeles, got to watch Bowler. And I don't think I've ever got through a weekend because, again, it's really impressive. Like, if I watch the matches individually, I watch one week, watch one the other week, I'm sure I'd love them all. But to watch over and over and over again, there's nothing. It's the same emotions, and after a while, you're going to get burnt out on that emotion. And I always, when we're talking about match structure and the difference of shows, I always come up to this as an example with Sendai Girls in the UK. Some of the best female wrestlers in the world on that show. But then they had Iga, which looks like as if you're watching The Ring, and it's the girl with the black hair or the ghost face, something like that, against Martina. And that broke the show up massively because it was a lot of serious wrestling. You had Mako versus Tony Storm and stuff like that. But that match just, I don't know, it kind of calmed the crowd down a lot and then gave that other emotion. So then you'd appreciate the next match because I think the placement was just fantastic.
Well, as I say, it's like, you've got the, if you have like 8 singles, like, 6 singles matches, they're all like indie, like classics with loads of spots and things like that, then people are going to get bored after a while. 6 matches in, they're not going to care for that main event if they've seen everything all right. But as I say, I like it as a kind of cabaret. So you might have like a simple good guys and bad guys, a bit of comedy, a high action triple threat, a tag match. It all breaks it up rather than just seeing singles matches. And there is a market for that, I suppose. Is that big enough to support, like, you go, I want to run an indie show that's all indie matches and it's going to be great. Is there enough of a market for that? Whereas if you can get a varied show and I think that's what WWE have tried to go for.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's what they've gone for in the past, is everyone to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like, so, parents might be taking their kids because the kids love wrestling. The kids are going to come out and going to go, I want to see John Cena and I want to buy all his merch, or whoever's popular now. I don't know. But like, they come out and they're there. And the parents are there, like, I'm taking my kids. That's nice. But what's going to make them come back is if they enjoy it as well.
Yeah.
If they go there and they have to slog through 3 hours of wrestling and they don't care, then they're gonna. We took our kids once. We done it. It's fine.
It's not cheap either, is it?
Yeah, no. Like, but if you have something that appeals to them, like, say, like, you've got all these wrestlers, and then suddenly, Rampage comes out, and the dad goes, he looks like a bit of a bad man, and sees him like absolutely leather people, like, oh, he might be quite hard. I mean, he looks like he can fight, like, oh, he's a bit dangerous, a bit handy. And you've got him interested. And then maybe, this might seem like a bit sexist or whatever, but like, you have another wrestler like come out, like, I don't know, like a Dolph Ziggler or something.
Yeah.
And the man might go, oh, he's a bit of all right or whatever. And I'm not saying that all women do that and all men, but, or there was like, I know, like, I remember hearing that Santino was brought in, like, he was funny. And like mothers would go, like, taking their kids, like, oh, he's quite funny, like, I'm enjoying watching this guy's act.
Yeah.
And like when the wrestling actually happened, they're like, I don't care. But because of like the angle and all that. So getting that whole family engagement kind of thing is what keeps people coming back. Like, because the kids will want to buy the merch or the toys or whatever, and they'll want to see their wrestlers. And the man goes, well, I don't mind going because, oh, it's a bit funny at times. And the dad goes, well, a couple of those guys, they're quite hard at the end of the day. And that's what makes them go, well, yeah, it's worth spending a bit of money on like going to the wrestling.
Yeah.
And like what happened for years in British wrestling is that you spend ages trying to convince people to come to shows, and like a lot of the shows were not good quality, back in the day. And they'd go, like, families would go, they'd spend a lot of money, they'd turn up, 30 people in a room, like, and some like barely trained, 14-year-old kids like wrestling.
Yeah.
And then the family goes home and goes, we're not going to go watch British wrestling again. Like, it was rubbish. Like, we'll just wait, save up, and when WWE comes to town, we'll go watch them. So, like, you need to try and engage all those people and try and, like, make it an event, because as people have always said, like, it's not other wrestling companies that your competition as a wrestling promotion. It's a night out of the pictures. It's going to the theater or going bowling or something.
Yeah.
If your family's going to go, like, or a night out on the piss, like, if you're marketing an adult show and they're like, well, am I going to go? I mean, obviously this was in the before times, but am I going to go to the pub and drink with my mates, or shall I go to this wrestling show? So you've got to make it appeal to those people. So, you might add crazy things that would bring people in. Go, you can drink here, or there's a club after the party. Well, I don't know. But yeah, getting that engagement from all the people who come to your shows I think is key to success.
Yeah, definitely. So going away from like your NGW stuff, like obviously Tidal Championship, the title there. What other did I freeze up a little bit there?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah. But yeah, with Tidal Championship Wrestling, obviously you're champion there. Mm-hmm. You've done a couple of other companies. Like, what are like some of your highlights from other companies? Like, what was it like with Tidal?
Yeah, Tidal was good. Again, like, it was kind of a curveball and it was like, yeah, I want to have like a champion that no one's going to expect. And I was like, fair, I'll take that. Like, because I'd worked with him from the beginning. And then like, I'd taken a break for like a few months, and like he hadn't booked me. And I was like, I'm going to bring you back. I'm going to make you champion. I was like, fair, I'll do that. But yeah, I love working for Tidal. It's it's a good atmosphere. Like, it's only a small crowd, and I think over the years he's definitely refined his show. Like, back in the day, he would run shows in Darlington and Leeds. and also try and run storylines. This was another thing like a lot of promotions used to do, was try and run storylines, but then across different venues in different towns. So like no one had any idea what you were on about or cared, and that was a big thing. Like why? But yeah, Tidal, like it's gone through several venue changes and is now based around Leeds and has a dedicated following. And it's always fun to go there. Everyone's nice, never had any trouble with anyone. Like it's it's a good environment. And it's just like exhibition show. There's some matches, there's a bit of storyline, good crowd interaction. It's just kind of a fun show, and it's only an hour down the road from me, so I can't really complain. Rise is another one that I really enjoyed. I was looking forward to working for Rise for a long time. I was trying to get in there, and I finally did last year. And then obviously,
was you using more of your aggressive persona?
yeah. I was taking a bit of a darker path kind of thing. Like, but like again, like I don't know. It's hard to be a true heel nowadays. Like, especially on an adult show. Like, and I sort of managed it, but a mate of mine, well, I kind of went a bit of a different kind of route with it. And I was talking to a mate of mine who watched the show, and it was like, so what's your gimmick now then? Gay Satan or something? I was like, yeah, I suppose. So I don't know if I got it over perfectly, but I don't know. It's, yeah, like, I think I got over as a heel. Quite well, and like it was really good, really enjoyable. Like a great crowd, great atmosphere, and the way like Danny runs the place is a proper night out and a good. Like you can see why it has the following it does. Like if people are like, I'm just going to go down the Dog and Handgun for a couple of pints with my mates, it's like fine, but that's like a party night out. People are getting drunk, people are getting into it, and the venues that are run like low ceilings and everyone's close in. It has that kind of like punk gig like vibe to it, like DIY, and everyone's really invested in it. It's great fun working there. I'd love to work more places, get myself out more and more. But as I say, like one thing I think is key to wrestling nowadays is marketing, and that's something that I am not amazing at. But like essential now, like if I was to say, if there was a young lad coming into wrestling now, I'll say, what are 3 things you need to do? It's like get to the gym, get to a decent school, and learn how to market yourself online. Because it builds that impression. Obviously, the indie, like if you want to be like an indie darling, and it'll lead you open doors and things like that. People have to know what you're doing and be able to see your matches. Now, as I say, like a lot of my matches, if you were to watch them now, feature El Ligero. So I wouldn't advise. Well, I wouldn't encourage people to go watch them or whatever. But that's just me. I have a lot of other matches, but none of them are free on YouTube like the ones we do. So
how does that affect yourself? And like, say if you are trying to reach out to other companies and like, hey, got a wrestling CV or something like that, and how do you feel? Because again, I know we spoke before, like we was even recording, because it's bittersweet because your performance and your work was amazing, but it's always going to be tied to somebody that's done some horrible things. So how, like, where do you stand with that?
Yeah, I mean, it is hard. It is like he's done some unforgivable things, and he's out of the business for it. And as I say, I feel now like I can't or shouldn't share those things with promoters because of the opinions of him, and it is unfortunate. But what can you do about it, really? Like it's a 2-person thing. Like I was there, I wrestled him. I don't know. Like I wasn't involved in any of the stuff that is there, but it just so happens that I was his friend, and I wrestled a lot of matches against him. So they're the ones that are filmed, and it is annoying because I think like Oh, like there's a lot of my career there that's kind of now has to be put in a bit of a dark corner. But there's no point crying over my like what I feel when there's people who have been really hurt by his
Yeah,
actions and things. And so like I'm not going to sit here and cry and go, "Ooh, I can't send my matches to the water because he was a bad man." It's like just the way of things, isn't it?
yeah,
But as with all things, like there are, you know, these things happen, and especially in wrestling because of the kind of people that wrestling attracts to it.
yeah.
With speaking out, because I'm sure you'll have realised, having talked to a lot of wrestlers now, that most wrestlers nowadays are complete nerds.
I can see the Evie and the Snorlax in the corner. This is where you
Oh,
tell me that you
I,
misses.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, no. So like, wrestlers are nerds, right? And you grow up, and I don't know anyone in wrestling who probably has grown up in school and not had someone like take the piss out of them for
Yeah,
liking wrestling, and it breeds a kind of insecurity. And as someone once told me, wrestlers, if you want to get up there in the spotlight, you've got to have a certain level of narcissism about you. So you've got insecure narcissists going into wrestling, which is why you end up with them all being creeps.
yeah,
People aren't perfect. Nobody's perfect, and a lot of people have done, like the whole like mob mentality kind of thing of Twitter and stuff. Like people are very easy to cast a stone
yeah,
um, when without looking within as such. Nobody's perfect. Everyone makes mistakes. Now, I'm not saying any of the people involved in speaking out as like innocent or that they don't deserve whatever has become of them,
yeah,
but it's just I don't know, it's a tricky situation. But wrestling attracts those kind of people.
yeah.
Then so they might be insecure, they might not be the most popular kids at school, and then they put on a pair of tights, they get in a bit of shape, and they get in the spotlight, and people are looking at them, and it changes, the mentality of them, and suddenly they're getting attention, and they don't know how to deal with it, and then they seek out this attention in negative ways, and it ends up with people, doing horrible things. I'm not saying these people are horrible people. No one's out there like twirling the mustache and plotting to set the world on fire or blocking out the sun like Mr. Burns. Like it's all in little steps, But people do these horrible things,
Yeah.
and yeah, they're finally getting caught out for it. I think, as I say, because British wrestling is completely unregulated, it's led to this kind of situation. And I think going forward, like you can't legislate for people for how people are going to act.
Yeah.
People are always going to come into wrestling, and they're always going to be those creeps who are going to try and take advantage or do horrible things.
We've
Or
seen it in Hollywood as
you've
well.
seen it in Hollywood, you've seen it in sport, you've seen it in everything. It's just the way of things. But hopefully, following the speaking out stuff, we've got an environment now where people can speak out.
Yeah.
And if someone's, messaging you or being inappropriate, and you're like a young trainee or whatever, you can speak up to your mates and not feel like you have to be like, oh no, he's more like, he's got a bit of pull or a bit of sway, or he could get me on shows. Now, like, hopefully it's more open and people go, this creep is messaging me. Like, I've told him to stop and he won't. And then we can deal with it from there and go, well, stop being a nonce or whatever. Like, so like, I hope we have that environment now, like post the whole speaking out thing, like, because there are always going to be creeps. But if people are more vigilant and there's an environment where people can actually speak out and say, I don't like the way I'm being treated here, or I think this person's being inappropriate, and then we can deal with it. And like before it becomes a big issue and someone's got like a big list of like screenshots of
Yeah.
horrible things they've said and all that kind of stuff. So that's my hope for the future. Like in terms of British wrestling, if it ever opens up again, I mean, it's taken a hit between that and
The pandemic.
pandemic, like it would be very, if any venues are open to run any shows, it'd be quite lucky. So we can but hope. To be fair, I was just lucky, as I say, to get the Butlins run last year. So I think I wrestled in those 10 days more than a significant population of the British wrestling scene did the entire year. To be fair, so I hold that dear to my heart. But yeah.
Like, what are some of your goals going forward then?
I mean, I ain't getting any younger, you know what I mean? So I just want to wrestle as much as I can, enjoy it as much as I can, go as many places and see as many things. Like, I've had a fairly varied, like, wrestling life, like, in terms of, as I say, doing like shows where I've traveled in a van between two 20-stone wrestlers, like sleeping in the van and getting up on a windy hillside in Hartlepool to do like a show in front of 30 people in the caravan park. Um, you do stuff like that, and then drinking contests. Another one, going to like randomly doing like a show in Milan Fashion Week,
Wow.
like which was a real weird. Well, it wasn't really a show, but like getting booked as a wrestler kind of thing, like to do this. Like this fashion show where we were like,
How did that happen?
it was a weird thing. Like, it was a promoter who just put something out on Facebook going, send me some headshots. Like, I've got um, this thing. It was like secret, and I was like, yeah, okay then, bam, and sent him, and then I just got a message back saying, okay, yeah, because I didn't really know what it was for. I just knew it was some kind of booking. It's like, yeah, okay, there's this fashion designer wants wrestlers in the background of his show or whatever. And so he'd picked a few heads that he liked the look of and flew us over to Milan to have a bit of a few nice espressos, a free meal and free hotel and all the booze we could drink. It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. But like,
Hopefully we can do some more of that.
yeah, it wasn't too. I mean, it was a night. There was definitely problems with it. It was not a perfect smashing trip, but it was interesting at least. Like, also fashion show buffets, rubbish, absolutely.
I can imagine.
Finger buffet. They said, yeah, you won't need to eat. We'll put buffet on for you. No, 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 no.
It was similar when I'd gone to Buckingham Palace for a garden party, and I was like, "Oh yeah, there'll be great food." Like I'm a kid that grew up on Branzham. Like I tell you what, there wasn't much food in the palace that I was like, that looks nice. I was like,
No sausage
stay,
rolls. Not even a
no,
Scotch egg.
staying away from
Rubbish. In the bin. Not even a baby bell to be seen.
that.
Absolutely.
But yes, what is that ultimate goal? Like, is NXT UK some? 'Cause I know they came in Hull before the
Yeah, I mean,
pandemic in October. Is that
I,
something?
I'd love to do it, yeah. But realistically, I think, I'm 35 now, so I think it would be extremely unlikely for them to look at me just based on my age. And, okay, they hired Rampage, who's a similar age, but, in terms of where he is in his career and where he's been and what he's done, like, yeah, fine.
Might do a story where you Rampage his long lost brother.
I mean, yeah, there was talk of me being Ruckus Beige once to for the tribute acts. There was a big tribute act scene back in the
It's
day.
gonna be like it's gonna be like where it's like the fake X Pac and the fake
The Undertaker,
Kane.
yeah, yeah, versus the fake Rampage Brown. Like, looks a lot shorter than he does on telly. Like,
Hey, people in the live attendance couldn't tell the difference.
and I couldn't tell, just like Rampage me.
It's like
Yeah,
that Spider-Man gif meme where they're pointing.
yeah, totally. But
Oh,
yeah, I mean, as I say, that was both a great compliment and also a damning indictment of me. So yeah. What can we do? But yeah, like I'd love to go to NXT or do anything. I just want to keep wrestling, really. I just
yeah.
enjoy doing it. Um, I think I'm pretty good at it. And as you say, massively underrated. No one realizes. Like, as I say, between the stamp and the anvil, that's definitely me. Somewhere. Either
Nah,
criminally, but yeah, that's it.
thank you for coming on. Like it's been a lot of fun just talking and having a laugh as well. To be fair, It's always good. And where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, I got a Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Dara Diablo, pretty much for all three. So you can follow me. I don't post that much on Twitter because I don't really know how it works. I'm an old man. I might even get a TikTok, start doing TikToks, but I wouldn't hold up much hope for that. But yeah, on Instagram, I mean, in the last year, there's not been that much wrestling, so it was mainly pictures of my hamster. But he was cute, so definitely check him out. But also wrestling, all that kind of stuff. And when it comes back, be more active on there. But yeah, you can find me there, and you know, subscribe to some various subscription services, and you might be able to find matches of me. Like, I wouldn't advise looking for the free ones as such on YouTube, but.
No, definitely not. But no, Dara, thank you for coming on, mate. It's been
Thanks for having me.
talking to you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Before we go, I'll have to say, Alexa, lights off.
Door's closed, mate. Can't hear you now. Can't hear you. Ruined.
It's had my pants right now. So, for everybody listening,
Been
I was playing around with Alexa. He's got these smart lights, and I was like, oh, I wonder if it'll work for me. So I thought, yeah, we'll do it. And this is where he's probably done it on his phone and thought, yeah, I'll do it during the interview and rib me. So then,
Alexa, turn the lights red.
It's
try again.
Alexa, turn the lights off.
Nah, don't like you. Don't like it. Alexa, turn lights on.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
But now, mate, it's been a pleasure. Everybody, do make sure you go check out Dara on social media. Try not watch the free matches. Make sure you hit like. Make sure you hit subscribe. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.